We prepaid some insurance last year, so that's there until the premiums come due, and then that'll go away. Again, interest receivable that we're making on the investments above. So you can see total assets of $451,000. Under liabilities and CSA payable, that needs to go away in a discussion yesterday with IMCA, and so we'll because we don't know CSA anything now, that's paid off. So again, you can see our total equity at 445,000. So we're for total equity, and then the total is 451. Any questions on the balance sheet before we go to the income statement? So current period year to date is going to be similar because that's where we are. You can see by the end of March, we had approximately 162,000 in dues come in. And as you can see, we budgeted 174. That number has increased up into the mid to upper 160s, but it's not quite at 174 yet. So if you haven't paid your dues, get them in. Reserve income, you can see again from our investments what that is. So you add that to the income from the dues. So we're at 163,700 in total income. Management fees at 7,500, and that's again with IMC, where they do all of our administrative work now versus CSA previously. So we pay them basically $2,500 a month unless there's special projects not covered under that. Legal fees trickling in. Bank service charges, that's mainly credit card fees from dues paid. Communication, that's another big number. That was again notification of dues sent out, and annual meeting expenses was in that number. Accounting services, that's ballot accounting that we pay. So you can see total administrative right at 25,000 in expenses. So through the end of March, where excess revenue over expense is 138,000. Any questions on the income statement through the end of March? All right. Second item that I've been asked to present, March 21st, the board approved via email a monthly voluntary contribution to IMC, which I'm recently at 2,500 that I just said. So that needs now to be ratified during our board meeting. Paula?
Do I hear a motion? Thank you, Dave.
A second.
And I think it needs to be explained the reason for it. It's in the condition in which it would come off.
You're talking about the monthly voluntary contribution?
Right.
The 2,500. Yeah, that is basically fees that we paid IMC.
I'm talking about the voluntary contribution. We're doing that because of increased cost of gas, and we're going to do that until gas drops to $3.50 or lower. I didn't think that I didn't hear that. Maybe you said it. No,
I didn't say it. Thanks for saying that.
Right, and the voluntary contribution was $100 a month.
right.
Right.
So we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor to ratify? Thank you. Thank you, Grover. The next one on finances is the Pines POA investment policy. And I believe Grover and Lee were working on it, and Lee was going to walk us through this one.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah. So Pines POA has had a verbal investment policy, and at a recent workshop, there was discussion of whether we should have that policy committed to print and make it part of our documents. So having been involved with a similar approach at a POA that I was a member of, I agreed to at least put forward a draft of a investment policy for our discussions. You all have had this in advance. Kathleen, can you share the document?
Sure. Can everybody see that?
I can.
Yes.
Great, and I'll point out that I just noticed this morning that the things in yellow were a change from what was the packet that was originally posted. And I already realized that I have a typo in the first one. That should say handled, not handed. There should be an L in there, my error. So the approach here is that this documents not only how we invest our money, but also who handles what between us and IMC, so that this is documented not only for this board and for our members, but for future boards. It can be changed at any time by a vote of the board. I don't know, Paula, if you want me to go through line by line.
Since we've approved it, we can ratify it here, but there are some blanks that we need to discuss to fill in.
Okay, so the first one that's not a blank, but I'll point out is number 7. That says at all times sufficient funds should be kept in the operating accounts to cover operating contingencies. In some cases, a minimum balance is set as part of the policy. That would be, again, up to this board whether we want to set a minimum that has to be in our operating account, which is administered by IMC.
I mean, I'm still thinking about a personal checking account and the minimum balance that I have to keep to avoid any service charge. Businesses' service charges are fixed anyway, so we're not saving anything, right?
Correct. It's just a matter of whether we want a certain amount in there at all times or not. And, you know, we've only been operating with IMC for a short time, so maybe we want to hold off on that and have a discussion with them at some point.
Well, Kathleen, do you recommend, you know, a minimum in there, 5,000 or something like that, or?
That is above and beyond my scope.
Okay.
I can definitely ask Garrett, our CFO, and get that answer for you all.
Thank you.
So moving on, then the first blank is on number 10. At no time shall the combined funds in any one institution, including interest, exceed, and we need to fill in that blank. Typically, that's set at limits for insured investments. Grover, you may have a better idea than I do of the actual investments we have with Morgan Stanley, of whether they are insured or not, or guaranteed as far as a principal.
I wouldn't think they're guaranteed. I mean, they're basically, you know, grade A corporate bonds.
Okay, so
you got to, if a corporation goes under, I'm sure they're not guaranteed.
yeah, right now, from the balance sheet, we've got a little over $351,000 at Morgan Stanley. FDIC insurance covers $250,000. So again, I don't know whether we want to fill this blank in today, but my recommendation would be that we not have investments at any one place that exceeds the amount that they could be insured.
Let me mention, and this has been a while back, doing accounts with brokerage firms. The cash in those accounts can be deposited in one of their banks and get the FDI insurance limit.
Correct.
But the bonds and the other things, or the cash is just in the brokerage account that's not invested in a bank.
Right.
It's covered by an insurance company, and I forget the name of it now, that insures all of these accounts in a bank and in brokerage firms. It's not, my understanding is not a federal insurance fund, but it is an insurance fund. So I don't, and I don't know how solvent it is. The only time I questioned it was back in 2008. And, you know, because I was concerned if the market then could go busted, other companies could go busted, that there wouldn't be enough insurance funds to cover it. Whatever I did, I satisfied myself that was the best I could obtain if I wanted to stay in the stock market, because there is no limit, whether there's 100,000 in this one and 500,000 in that one, it all applies. And I didn't recall any limit on it per account.
Mhm.
That bears further verification, because that's been back 15 years ago.
Okay, good point, and it's, we should verify that.
My suggestion would be for number 10 to, instead of in any one institution, which would include a brokerage firm, to make that a bank or savings and loan, which is covered by FDIC, whereas the others aren't. And then number 11 would, we could modify that to either a $ or percentage, but that would be however we want to manage the brokerage account.
Yeah, but
Is
there
it-
are two different issues here, Paula. One is guaranteed or insured, and the other is just whether we want to limit how much is any one investment. So they're really.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is, I don't think that our brokerage in brokerage investments should be included in number 10. So you've already given us the answer, which is the $250,000, which we would limit to be in any bank or savings and loan, correct? That is insured, FDIC.
Right, but that leaves at risk those investments that are not. So we would need to address that somewhere.
That's correct. And I was saying, while we are on number 11, while we are limiting or directing what the brokerage firm is doing, let's add that. That would be our brokerage firm bullet, and just say, okay, no more than 20% of the reserve funds in any single investment, and make sure that we get a clarification from them of what type of insurance they have, if anything, that puts control over our investments. They are the most conservative to begin with. So other than putting it in a mattress, I don't know what else we would be doing, but.
I agree with you. They're conservative. I guess I would do the reverse and then verify that there's insurance. And if there is, then 10 would cover everything as is. And instead of putting 250,000, we could just put verbiage that says that to the limits of insurance provided by FDIC or whatever the insurance coverage is at the brokerage.
Before we complete this, why don't we get the information to know that, and then we can bring this back with the right language and the right insurance companies and all that kind of stuff. Because right now we'd be adopting something that it's way up in the air because there's some information we don't have.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I'll get something from Morgan Stanley as to how
I was just going to say, I think they could give us some advice
For sure.
and instruction on this.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
And Paula, the purpose here is not critical of any investments. I agree, our investments are as conservative as can be. And again, this is a policy, so we can make it anything we want. It's just that we ought to know what's an insured or guaranteed investment and what isn't, and where they are.
Thank you.
And then the last two were added since the original packet was sent out, which just clarifies IMC's role or not in this, as far as our investments are concerned, that they basically may help execute our policy, but they are not acting as an investment advisor in any way, and that they will continue to provide the financial reports with which Grover just went over that would reflect the status of our investments so that we see a full picture of our financial status.
Let me ask a question. Does IMC's role include choosing investments for us or recommending investments?
Not that
No.
I'm aware of.
No,
Then that also needs to be clear in here too. Is that what do they do? They're just to monitor our investment?
they basically report out.
Right.
They get a copy of the report from the brokerage firm
Right.
and pull that to put into our board package. So it's more of a reporting than any activity.
Okay.
So any other questions that anybody has on this? And I agree with David that, we need to lock some of these questions down before we approve a full policy.
I think it's a great idea to get this written up and make it a record. And I think it's good work, Lee. Thanks for doing this, and Grover.
Thank you very much, Lee. And let's finish it out. I'm much more comfortable working with a financial policy in place. Maybe we could put this out for approval by email when you've got the information, when you and Grover have it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And then we can ratify it at the September meeting.
Thank you. Okay. On to some updates. Architectural Review Board, one of our representatives, Lee.
Yeah, so the report is in the packet. Nothing new other than I happen to note that the remaining lots continue to decline as people are building here in Sea Pines. Other than that, it's just really a status of what's going on in Sea Pines as far as density report stays the same, other than what changes from an empty lot to a new single family residence. And then on our May is the most recent one showing that one new single family residence was started, major and minor alterations, pools, which have been a major thing we've seen this year. We're seeing a lot more pools being requested. And we're also seeing that a lot of the pool companies are telling prospective pool owners that they can be anywhere from 1.5 years to 2.5 years out if they sign now. So that's how far that's going. Other than that, I think it's fairly self-explanatory. Any questions anybody has on the density report or the activity?
Lee, are you seeing more demolitions, or is like 2 a month typical?
Yeah, we're starting to see what I know from being a Northeasterner originally and on the the New Jersey coast. We're starting to see a lot more teardowns. So where before lots were being purchased and new homes were going up, particularly on the T streets closer to the ocean, we're seeing people buying older homes that may be on grade and tearing them down and putting up a newer home, that starts at 13 or 14 feet and to meet the flood requirements and so on. So yes, that is happening more than it has in the past.
Question, just in general for ARB, are there, Kathleen, I think we're through with the financial, thank you. Are there any restrictions, policies, anything about the height or the size of these homes? I mean, when Sea Pines was first developed, these McMansions were never on the radar screen. They didn't really exist that much.
There's two things. One is there can't be more than two stories of living space. So there can be no 3-story buildings other than in certain areas of Harbor Town where there are villas. There's like the townhomes along there. They're allowed to be 5-story. And there's a maximum height of a single family home at 50 feet to the peak of the roof.
Okay, what about lot size or scale to the lot?
Well, there's multiple things we look at. One is a ratio of heated square footage to the lot size. It must be at least a 1:3. So basically the footprint of the heated portion of the house can't exceed 2/3 of the lot. Excuse me. Yeah, can't exceed, excuse me, one third of the lot. Is that right? 1 to
1/3.
3. Yeah,
Okay.
one third of the lot.
And there's no measurement. It's just a ratio. So
It's
like
a
you could
ratio,
go,
right? But you also have the setbacks. So it depends. There's 3 types of lots in Sea Pines. There are patio lots, which have if you're familiar with them, they have one wall with no windows and a 3-foot setback, and one wall with windows with a 7-foot setback. Then there are garden lots that have 10-foot setbacks on both sides. And then there's full-size lots, which go to a 30-foot setback.
so there's nothing really with what you've got right now and what I'm seeing, and then this is just, thinking out loud. It's not pointing any fingers or anything like that. There isn't anything really in place to prevent future McMansions, because the ones that are built now are fitting inside what the ARB policies are, right?
Yeah, and setbacks are not ARB policy. They're by covenant.
Yeah, okay.
So that would be a covenant change to change the setbacks.
Okay, now it wasn't the setback as much as it was just the size.
Right. But in addition to, remember, all we have is architectural oversight. So we don't have anything to say with the interior of the building, but we do look at mass, and we'll make recommendations or deny a design that looks too massive and ask them to, like if somebody puts up a blank, and we had this happen, a blank side wall of a house on a full-size lot with no windows, just this massive blank wall, then we'll ask them to do something to break up the mass, whether it be setting back the second floor a couple of feet so that there's a step back, anything to make it look more aesthetically pleasing is a term that's usually used when something's turned down.
Okay, all right. So if anything, it would fall under aesthetics.
Yes.
Okay. All righty. The next one is communications. Lori? Hello. Are you talking? She must be talking. It doesn't look like
On
you're
mute,
on
Lori.
mute.
You're on mute.
Kathleen, is there another unmute or something you have?
Lori was awfully quiet this morning.
I know.
Lori, if you try *6, I'm not sure if you're using a phone, that will unmute you.
Why don't you log out and log back in?
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll come back. So Covenant Reform Task Force, I pretty much covered in the president's remarks. Lee, unless you feel like there's anything to add. You're on mute now also. No, you're still on mute.
There we go. Yeah, I had muted myself when I'm not on. The Covenant Task Force currently is kind of on hold. They've made 7 or 8 recommendations of some covenant reform that they felt we needed to look into as individual task forces on each topic. And that's on hold until the referendum lawsuit is resolved.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Can you hear me now?
We sure can. Welcome.
Thanks.
You thought you
Okay,
were
let's
awful
go back
quiet.
to communications.
Just a quick update. One, John and I are soon to be publishing our next newsletter. And in it, we will have hopefully at least a little intro about what will be our new Sea Pines POA speaker series, which will be a monthly 3rd Tuesday of the month early evening gathering of Sea Pines property owners who wish to attend to learn more about life on Hilton Head in all ways and shapes and forms, including governmental, and that's town, county, state, also things that are about the history of the island, about the culture of the island, and all sorts of interesting things, environmental, you name it. And so we're currently working on a slate of speakers, and it'll be, a half an hour to 45-minute talk, followed by an open question and answer session, which should make it all very interactive and interesting. So stay tuned for that. Our first one will be in September, and they will run through May, and then we'll take the summer off every year. So anything you would add to that, John?
I think I would just say that if anybody has any suggestions or something that pops out that they'd like to, suggest, feel free to contact us on the website. It's just under contact us, or email us at info@cpinespoa.com. Love to hear from you.
And I know that Lori and John are working fast and furious on the June newsletter, so you'll be seeing something very quickly, in the next week, right? Fingers crossed from us. We are an all-volunteer organization. So.
Well, and I will say we wanted to have this meeting and also receive any feedback before we put the content to bed. So we were waiting for this.
Thank you very much. The next item is legal. There are no updates at this point other than 88 Lawton, which is, I have it under unfinished business, but it is in the legal system now. And CSA has collected the costs of all the remediation. I believe at this point the court has seen it and they're getting ready to start, or it will be seen by the court as soon as it comes up, and remediation on that lot will begin. Membership committee, Lee, anything? I don't think anything's happening there.
No, nothing new to report.
Okay. All right, thank you. Greg, nominating committee?
Thank you. Well, I can report that we have started our work to make sure we have a slate of fully qualified candidates to put forward. We're on schedule, and conversations are ongoing, and we will be able to meet our deadline.
Thank you.
Which is to announce the slate. I think it's by August 31.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That is terrific news. John, anything happening with the website? I know it was updated with all the election information for Greg. Anything else?
Yes, we've started adding our newsletter to the website. So if you missed it in your email, it's under archives. So feel free to check that out. We're going to post those monthly. And then we also added the communications committee that was ratified in the last meeting.
Thank you.
That's up there now.
Yeah, good. Okay, so I just went through 88 Lawton. New business, a board update. Dana Guazzo, who was in her third year of her first term on the board of directors, has moved to Jacksonville, Florida. She is no longer a resident here in Sea Pines, which precludes her being able to serve on the board. So she was required to resign. Bill Johnson, who was in his second term, resigned also earlier this year. So there were two holes on the board of directors. When we met in a workshop a month ago, we voted to backfill these two positions. Bill Johnson's term ends December of 2023, and we elected to appoint Lori Allenbach as his replacement. Dana Guazzo's term ends at the end of this year, and we elected to appoint Carrie DeVillette to that position, to her position. So with that, I would like again to ask for a ratification of a vote. Let's see the resolution. Resolved, Sea Pines POA approves the appointment of Lori Allenbach to fill a board seat vacancy, which terms expires December 2023. All those in favor? Okay. Resolved, Sea Pines Property Owners Association Board of Directors approves appointment of Carrie D. Vallette to fill a board seat vacancy in which the term expires in December 2022. All those approve? All right. Thank you. That pretty much closes out our business, unless you all have any new business or old business, anything?
We have any questions to answer?
There are 2 questions in the inbox.
Okay. With that, I will call for an adjournment in 5 minutes, and we will come back and answer the questions. Thank you.
Move adjourned.
I'll second. All righty, we have two questions and I'm going to read the first. Could Sea Pines POA look into helping property owners from beach marker 10 to 5 get boardwalks from CSA? It is unfair to these owners not to have what everyone else has. This is from Fritz Smith, who I'm assuming lives between beach marker 10 and 5. Fritz, I would like to take that and if you could please tell me if you are in a regime. I think that one voice is not very loud. And if you and your neighbors feel strongly about that, it's a CSA issue, but I would recommend that your entire regime go to CSA with that. I would be happy to send it to them for you if you'd like. But I see that as a very localized issue. And that's what the local regimes address in most cases. Thank you very much for reaching out to us. I appreciate it. Greg. On mute.
At that, I was just going to suggest that if they haven't spoken with Russell to see if there's a plan in the works already, you know, to complete something in the future, they might start there and maybe something.
That's
planned.
a great suggestion. Thank you.
Mhm.
The last question is from Mariana Bartel, which is, there's not really a question in here. It's a position as an owner who uses their property and also has it listed as a short-term rental. I strongly oppose CSA's board approval requiring short-term registration fee. I'm very strongly opposed to the fee structure based on number of bedrooms. I would not be as strongly opposed to a registration fee based on a property's gross income. It's a CSA issue. Dave, are you still chairman of the short-term rental committee over there?
Yep, short-term rental committee did not,
Yes, you are.
handle this problem. This was handled by a revenue task force.
Okay. There is, Marianne, on the CSA website, from the last board meeting that they had where this came into place, there's a presentation that you can take a look at to help understand why they did what they did. We chose not to get involved in short-term rental as I really feel like it would create civil war with our membership, since we don't have that we have such a diverse ownership of owner investors, second homeowners, as well as year-round homeowners as well. But I'd be happy to find that for you if you'd like. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, you know, the question is based on how to best determine fairness.
Yeah.
And, you know, and what's proposed here, what's said you would be strongly opposed based on revenues, and revenues, of course, would be an appropriate way to adjust the fairness of any registration fees. I think the issue, as I heard it, is that information is not available to CSA. That they have to submit that information to the town, but the town does not turn that information over. It's the way I understood the conversation to go. So they had to do something other than, you know, based on revenue. But the point is that, you know, and I think she's making, and it's a fair point, is that if it was based on income, I mean, you might have a, you know, somebody only rents out 1 month, 2 months out of the year, or 3 months out of the year, whatever's minimum over the minimum, and they're paying the same fee as somebody's renting out a 5 or 6 bedroom house. Well, they've broken down on houses, but all the time. So, you know, so there's a merit to the conversation. It's just a matter that I think there's difficulty getting that information to do that.
Yeah, and if I understood CSA, I see this as a first step. They'll be doing it, but nothing's etched in stone. I mean, I would think if that information became available, it certainly could be part of the conversation.
Yeah.
each budget year. So, okay, fair enough. Thank you all very much for joining us and have a good summer.
All of y'all too.
Bye now.
Right.